Hello, my name is Lucio Mellace, and welcome to the show. Recently, I read Captured by the Indians, 15 first-hand accounts from 1750 to 1870, edited by Frederick Drimmr. This book is about the scalping of Indians or Native Americans from 1700 to 1800s. It details first-hand accounts of the Native American situation in both 1700s and 1800s. On page 16, this says, an old Dutch account speaks of the Mohawks carrying home leg and arm bones after a foray, and Mary Jemison, taken captive in the French and Indian War, speaks of seeing fragments of burnt bodies hanging on a pole in a Shawnee village on the banks of the Ohio. Thomas Brown, a colonial soldier, was horrified to see his captain's head mounted on a pole by Indians in the service of the French. The colonists speedily learned to pay the Indians back by cutting off their heads and displaying them publicly. They also learned to take scalps as efficiently and routinely as the Indians did. The operation of scalping held a morbid fascination for the captives of the Indians, and they mention it frequently in their narratives, because so many varying statements are made about scalps and scalping. It is worth examining into what the Indians' practices actually were. So this story is about Thomas Brown, a colonial soldier who saw his captain's head scalped and mounted on a pole by Indians. I first heard of scalping from Blood Meridian by Corey McCarthy. In Blood Meridian, you have this character named the Judge, and the characters ask others about their opinion of the judge, and they ask them, "What is ye a judge of?" Or "What is he a judge of?" In in the same book, the, the judge says, "War endures. Men love war because they find war in themselves. They see themselves in war." On the next page, on page 17, it states, scalping was a brutal, painful experience, but it did not always cause death. Sarah Ann Horn, who lived in northern Mexico in 1839, spoke to a man who had been scalped by a Comanche. He told her that the Indians had first made an incision around his head, then stood on his shoulders and tore the scalp off, and he would the skin from a slaughtered sheep. Usually the victims lay face down and the victor knelt on him, perhaps pressing his knee into his back. He would seize the victim's hair in the left hand and with a scalping knife held in his right, make a swift cut around the head. Then he would pull hard at the scalp or scalp lock if the victim was an Indian, and jerk it off with the skin attached. Occasionally he might use his teeth to help. Frequently, but not always, a section of scalp about 3 inches in diameter was taken. Some elderly Blackfeet told John C. Evers that Indians who survived scalping wore caps to cover their bald spots. It was not uncommon among the Plains Indians to scalp an enemy and then spare his life and send him back to his people as an insult and an act of provocation. However, the enemy was often killed and the entire scalp was removed. In the collection of the museums of the American Indian in New York City, there is a very large scalp, complete with the ears of the victim. So one question that pops up if you are religious is how could God, a loving God, allow so much violence and so much evil to take place in the course of a short human life, or the generations of mankind as has been lived today? Sorry about that, I was looking for the next page. In the section titled, if I can find it, titled 3 Years Among the Comanches, it states on page 300, I hoped devoutly during the engagement that the Comanches would be beaten, believing that if I should fall into the enemy's hands, my chances of escape would be increased. For I had often heard that the Apaches were more merciful to prisoners than others of their race. Here, the first-hand account is about how the author found the Comanches to be more merciful than any other members of different races or clans. This is a great book to read if you want a Blood Meridian fix or a Cormac McCarthy fix. When I kept reading each page of this novel, of this account, I couldn't help but think of Blood Meridian all the time. Sorry for the long-winded and slow-paced review. It is quite early in the morning, and I do have difficulty sleeping, such as experience with nightmares. I have nightmares about dying, mostly. They're all about dying in different forms and ways, and I usually get 4 hours or 3 hours of sleep. Sometimes I get 5 or 4, but most of the time it's 4 and 3. Also, I would like to apologize for the lack of uploads. I was trying to find the right book, and I'm working on a review of The Strange Death of Europe by Douglas Murray. If you guys want another book channel to follow, check out Ahead of the Curve by James Bergman. He's a great guy and very nice, and he has a podcast called The Bastard Sons of Oedipus, which is a cool name, to say the least. Well, thank you for everything, for sticking with me through all these video reviews, and as always, have a good day, and thank you for watching.